Hello. Today I am interviewing Beatrice Winifred Iker and going to be talking about their debut novel, I'll Make a Spectacle of You, which I thought was terrific. It's set at an Appalachian historically Black college and university, Brixbury Mountain College, and it follows Zora, an ambitious graduate student and hoodoo practitioner who's given a strange diary written by a former staff member. And that pulls her into a story involving a folklore tale of a beast lurking in the woods around campus. And as she begins to explore, she begins to have visions of the past, and things begin to come together in a really compelling and interesting story that I think has a lot of great kind of social commentary as well. So welcome,
Oh, thank
Beatrice.
you. Thank
So
you so much.
awesome. Let me ask first, how did this book first sort of come to you? And how did it was, like, here's an idea that I want to write. How did that come about?
Absolutely. So I have always, number one, had such admiration for HBCUs. My grandmother and my grandfather both have passed, but they were both graduates of HBCUs, one double over, and they really instilled in me from a young age how important these are not just as schools, but as larger centers of education, but of culture and social. I mean, there's so much history, there's so much just fashion, there's a lot of Black history and culture at HBCUs, and I have long wanted to set a book there, and I've long wanted to have the main character deal with Hoodoo at the school. Since Hoodoo is also a Black specific folk magic, I wanted that to be a part of the HBCU experience for the main character. So this was just a perfect combination of all of my interests. I'm also from Appalachia, so it was just really a coalescing of all of the things that I love: HBCUs, Hoodoo, history, and Appalachia.
Oh, fabulous. Well, and something else, which is Zora Neale Hurston.
Yes,
Will you talk about naming in fact, name your main character after her? Will you talk about how that was an inspiration as well?
yes, oh gosh. Yes, Zora Neale Hurston has long been a just literary hero, literary icon of mine. And not just literary, she was just an accomplished anthropologist, an accomplished um, historian. She was just incredible. And I really wanted to have the main character have a similar journey, but also more importantly, have a similar intention with her life. So that was also, yeah, really, really important for me to have that kind of twin intention of historical preservation.
I love that. I love that because I think the really good books that are true to writers come out of their obsessions, kind of come out of the things
Mm.
that they really think are important. So that's lovely.
Zora
And
has long been an obsession of mine. Her writing, Mules and Men and everything, has long been obsessions of mine. So
awesome.
that definitely makes sense.
Oh, awesome. So, talk to me about you're a storyteller. You're working in the tradition of Southern storytelling. You grew up hearing stories. What's one of your first memories of telling a story for yourself?
Ooh, a story for myself.
Yeah.
Um, when I was in middle school, I entered a poetry contest.
Oh,
It was the first poetry contest I'd ever entered into. And I wrote about soccer because I was also a soccer player. And I wrote about the goal and how I dreamed about running up to the goal and kicking the goal. And the whole poem was about my intention of
mhm.
running up and kicking into the goal. Very simple, but it felt very profound
Yeah,
to me
yeah,
at the time, because I was like, oh, this is about, who you are as a person and where you want to go in life. And I lost the competition, but
oh,
but the teacher who was running it afterwards, I'll never forget, she came up to me and she said, um, "It's clear that this was important to you, that the content of this poem was important to you, and so that's what actually matters here."
yeah, yeah.
So I'll take that with me forever, but
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
also will take that loss
Oh, yeah.
forever.
But that, I mean, that's it's so many writing triumphs. So it's kind of like the,
Hmm.
the bitter and the sweet mingled together, right?
Gotta be, that's sometimes it is that sometimes that's the way that's the best way.
Yeah,
That's sometimes that's the way you learn the
yeah,
best is, I had to learn, there are sometimes better ways to have written that, but what I wrote, I stand by.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I think kids poetry is, I think, just so pure in some
It's so
ways.
earnest.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
It's yeah, absolutely honest. Um, looking at my so one of the reasons that I love this book is because it falls into that dark academia category. And, and there's just so many really interesting books being done with that, where, the
Yes.
school is not kind of benign Harry Potter land,
Right.
but is, perhaps literally trying to eat the students.
Hmm.
Um, and this is another one, and I think it's really interesting. I think it adds to it a lot to make it a historically black college and university, and this idea that that it's a haven for students of color, but at the same time, it comes at a great price that they're not aware of. And so I don't really know that I have a question lurking in there, but like talk to me. Like, what are there dark academia
Sure,
stories
sure.
you
I
love?
so the cost of safety
Yeah.
was the one that probably one of the main themes that I wanted to center this narrative around was, okay, we can all agree, hopefully, we can all agree about the importance of HBCUs. We all agree we want them to be a haven for Black people. Um, However, nothing is free.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to play around with the main character in the beginning. She starts off with saying to herself, "Oh, this is the best college in the country. It's so safe. There's so few enforcement officers. There are so few instances of crime. The graduation rate is so high. This is just an ideal. This is it's just an idyllic place. There's nothing better in the world." And I really wanted to, I really wanted the readers to watch her slowly descend into knowing and
Hmm.
descend into this space of um, having to understand that sacrifice is not only warranted as in terms of a defensive thing,
Hmm.
but also sometimes offensively. And I
Hmm.
really wanted to play around with that
Yeah,
also.
yeah. Oh, that's fabulous. I love that. Um, you use history all through the book, and I would bet that researching it was a blast. And this
Yes.
is a question that actually came from somebody on Blue Sky, Devon Saunders, wanted to know what is a favorite or unexpected nugget that came out of your research?
Oh, well, first, hello, Devon. Thank you for the question. Um, wow, favorite nugget of information. I loved to learn about the history of Johnson City, Tennessee. So the story is set in Johnson City, and that is a real town. It is the oldest town in Tennessee. And I set the story there because I wanted it to be set in the oldest town in Tennessee.
Nice.
Um, and so the history of that town was so fascinating to learn about. And I used it obviously because I cited the book there. And so that was probably my favorite one because Johnson City is known as the storytelling capital of the world. They have annual festivals and conventions, and they are very and have long been very invested in the art of
Nice.
storytelling. And so it just felt like the perfect location also to set this book. It was just kismet.
Oh,
So
perfect.
that history nugget was really great for me.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think it's so lovely when you're researching and you find stuff that fits in such a way that you're just
Mm.
like, oh, that's even
It
better
was
than I had
perfect.
imagined.
I was gonna set it somewhere else, but I said no, it's perfect here.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not moving it.
yeah. Oh, that's perfect. It's perfect. Um, the book is non-linear,
Mhm.
kind of jumps around in time. And so my question is about writing process. Did you write it in a non-linear fashion? And can you talk about that a little?
I did write it in
You
a
did.
non-linear fashion. I wrote it each each character. I wrote their part all the way through.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
then I went through, so I did Zora's story first, the main character. I did her story all the way through. And then I thought about what would need to happen for each of the other characters to support her. So Amias starts off in 1827, I believe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I wrote his next all the way through, and then and so on and so forth. So
Nice.
I was out of order, entirely out of order. I skipped around from hundreds of years. It was fun though. It was really
Oh,
fun.
yeah.
It was, I never wrote the same thing in any given day. It was really fun.
Awesome. Awesome. Uh, I was also curious because you mentioned in an interview, or an interview mentioned that you read tarot cards.
I do.
And I was wondering if you ever use the tarot then in your writing practice as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Oh, talk about that.
One of my favorite ways to use tarot and astrology is in character development. Is so I will, when I'm doing character descriptions in the very, very beginning of my writing process, I decide when they were born, where they were born, all
Oh,
of that. And so I have an entire astrology chart for them. I know what each of my characters' sun sign, moon sign, rising signs are. And with that, I also pull a tarot card for
nice.
each character. And I have that card as kind of a North Star for that character throughout the whole process. And it's fun because it's nice to see the differences
Hmm.
and the nuances that can come out of each character when I
Yeah.
am including in their tarot card.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Do you have a specific deck that you like to use for that?
The Hoodoo tarot
The
deck,
Hoodoo. Ooh, the
actually.
Hoodoo
Yes.
deck.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
love that one.
Well, talk to me about Hoodoo because you wrote a essay for Nightmare Magazine called "The H Word: Horror Needs Hoodoo," and
I
so
did.
let's say I didn't get a chance to read it, or since our
Okay.
listeners probably have it, but tell me a little bit about Hoodoo and horror because I loved that.
Sure. So that article, thank you to Wendy Wagner for
Love
asking me to
Wendy.
write that article. Thank you, Wendy. Um, that article was all about the history of Blackness in horror and some of the challenges we face, especially when it comes to representation.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I specifically talk about why it's important in hoodoo because hoodoo is a Black specific folk magic. It was created by enslaved people during enslavement for protection and etc. And only their descendants can benefit
Hmm.
from this practice. Therefore, it is a closed practice to anyone else. So when you are including hoodoo and horror, but not including Black voices in those
Oh, yeah.
stories, whether it is Black characters who are engaging with hoodoo or Black writers writing the novels or the movies or whatever, you
Hmm.
are fundamentally missing an important part of the process that cannot be replicated by anything or anyone. And so when I say horror needs hoodoo, I am also saying horror needs Black stories written
Yes.
by Black people.
Yeah.
And that is an important part. It's not just Black stories to exist. Those Black stories need to be written by Black people.
Yes. Yes. Oh, awesome. Awesome. Love that. Um, oh, okay. Okay, so this kind of weird question is going to preface oddly.
Okay, I'm ready.
Are you ready? You're ready, totally
Yes,
prepared. So you described a perfume in the book, and
yes.
I loved this description so much that I actually went and I ordered a tester of it
Oh,
online, and I
you
got it. And I was like, I
did.
love this. And so like last time I traveled internationally, I actually went into the duty free so I could buy it more cheaply there. And so you hooked me on this perfume. So I have to know, do you have a signature scent? And do you think about the perfumes that the various characters wear?
Oh, let me, I'm so happy that this happened. Perfume is such an important part of my life.
Oh, awesome.
It
Awesome.
is such an important part of my life. I love perfume. Each of my characters have a signature perfume.
I suspected it.
I suspect you're talking about Lamont's perfume, Baccarat Rouge
Yes.
540.
Yes.
Yes. And it's a beautiful scent. So you love
I
it?
could sniff myself right now and
Oh, I'm
smell
so
it because
glad.
I wear
I'm
it for
so glad.
myself.
I'm so glad, Kat. I love perfume. I love scent. I love to use scent in writing. I think it's so
Yeah.
powerful. My favorite scent, oh gosh, I have so many. Just
A
uh
top
my
scent.
oh gosh, my top scent is probably
Doesn't have to be the top. It could just be a favorite because I hate to make people be like
this
this one.
one
Oh,
is
ooh,
called Apple Love. It's by
ooh.
Ellis Brooklyn.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Awesome. And what
Um,
are the notes?
Notes are apple, pear, some more. I can't remember the rest of them. But this is a very cold apple scent. If you're
Okay.
looking for a warmer apple scent, I recommend the one by Kayali.
Okay.
We could talk about perfume if you want a little later, Kat. But
Okay.
I love perfume now. I talk about perfume all day.
Oh, that's
I
so awesome.
and you will see in probably all of my stories at some point, someone is either spraying perfume, they're thinking about perfume, or someone has a signature scent,
Oh yeah.
whether it is perfume or just they smell that way.
Oh yeah.
I just love scent. I
Well,
love to talk and it's just, I love it.
it's
I
lovely, right? I mean, that's one of the
lovely.
things I love to do is go in and sniff. So
Hmm.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
love it so much. I love it.
Well,
I'm so glad that stood out to you. I was hoping that someone would notice it and someone would care. Like I really, really did.
I cared deeply enough to seek out the Barcelona duty free and talk to a
It's
very,
so
what I don't know, a very
beautiful.
snooty clerk.
That really just filled my heart. I
There
really
we go.
appreciate that because I intentionally put that in and I wanted Lamont to have that because that scent is a very strong, powerful
Oh
scent, and I
yeah.
wanted Lamont to have that scent.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Well, know that it was recognized
I'm
and
so
appreciated.
glad that made my entire week. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's awesome. And I did. I was like, I know she's got signature scents for each of her
I
characters. I
do.
know she
I
does.
do.
They
I
do.
have.
I'm
I
sorry.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do. I do. For
you do.
each character has a signature scent.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, uh, besides perfume, you like another word that begins with P, which is poetry. And we
I
talked, you
do.
talked early about poetry. Um, and I was curious, how do you feel writing poetry influences your fiction writing, and do they ever overlap?
Um, they often overlap.
Ooh,
I oftentimes find myself writing in prose, but if I'm stuck, I will switch to verse, and it usually is helpful. I am a poet first.
oh, okay,
I'm a
yeah,
poet
yeah.
first and foremost, and then I am a prose writer. And so that's why it's helpful to switch to verse if I'm struggling. But also I'm starting to write more novels in verse, and I'm
Ooh,
having a lot of fun with those.
okay. Wait, and is it like free verse, or are you doing like a formal rhyme scheme? What you doing
Free
there?
verse.
Oh, nice, nice. Okay,
Mhm.
awesome. You also co-host the Ignite award-winning Afronauts podcast, which explores Black speculative fiction. Can you tell our listeners a little more about the podcast and maybe suggest a few authors that people who enjoy I'll Make a Spectacle Out of You, people who are like, oh, I love this, I want some more. Who are some other folks, some particularly Black authors that they could go find?
Absolutely. So my podcast is with my best friends Jill too and Chelsea Gaydon,
Nice.
fellow Black speculative fiction authors. We sit down and we chat about our process as writers, traditional publishing. We're all in that realm, and just the process of being Black authors in today's world. And yeah, we have a lot of fun doing it. We have a lot of authors on. We've had just a lot of really fun conversations about the industry. There's some books I'm really excited about. I have not read Psychopomp and Circumstance yet by Eden Royce,
Oh, that's on
but
my
I'm
list.
really
Yeah.
excited to get into that. Also, Camilla Cole has a book coming out in the next couple of days. I don't know who's coming out, but in Arcane Inheritance by
Okay.
Camilla Cole is also a dark academia
Nice.
that I hope people will also check out. And then one book that also actually helped to inspire I'll Make a Spectacle of You is When the Reckoning Comes
Okay.
by LaTanya McQueen, which
Awesome.
is a Southern Gothic set
Ooh,
on a plantation. And I really recommend that
fabulous.
novel. It's very powerful.
Awesome. Awesome. Of course, I have nothing on my to be read list. I'm sure you have nothing either, right? But it's always so
Not a
great to
thing,
get.
not a single thing. No, no, I actually hate reading.
It's terrible. It's terrible. I just
Yeah,
went down to the library. It was a great suffering experience to walk through it, as it always
exactly.
is, right?
Mm. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
That's, I console myself with perfume later.
As you should. As you should.
Oh, so let's talk about Charlie's Honky Tonk Mission, because you have done a children's picture
Yes,
book about Charlie Pride, and the first Black country music superstar. And tell us about the book and tell us why Charlie Pride.
absolutely. So, yeah, Charlie Pride, the first Black country music superstar. He was biggest in the 60s and 70s when he really broke out. And he was also a Negro Leagues player. He was also a uh, baseball team co-owner. He
Oh, wow.
was
Okay.
very passionate about baseball and music, and I grew up listening to him and a bunch of other country and folk and gospel influenced type of things. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee,
Yeah.
and so that is really very near the country music capital.
Hmm.
And so I grew up with a deep admiration for country music, and Charlie Pride is just one of the biggest influences on country music,
Interesting.
period.
Awesome.
Um, Race aside. And I really wanted to, for my first picture book, I really wanted to write about him. And I actually, fun fact, after my agent and I went on submission with Charlie Pride, it was like in the summer. And then I think like that fall, Beyonce announced Cowboy Carter.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember my editor, after we went through the process and we were working with her, she said, it's so funny that Beyonce did that because that was like really helpful. It just kind of showed that there is such an interest
Oh, yeah.
in these musicians and in the history.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I was really glad to see that.
Oh, that's
Really
awesome.
helpful, Beyonce. Thank you. Shout out to Beyonce.
Did hashtag, shout out to Beyonce.
Yeah,
Well,
appreciate
it's
it.
so weird though, because like sometimes when you tag someone on social media, like I mentioned Guillermo del Toro at one point on social media, and
Mm.
like he liked the post, and I was like, you know,
Oh, you never know. You never know, you know? You never know.
it's so
And
weird.
I, Charlie Pride directly, certain, I'm sure she would also agree, directly influenced Beyonce and anyone who was influenced by Beyonce. Just
Yeah,
Charlie Pride had such a massive influence on culture, and
yeah.
I
Oh
really
yeah.
wanted to be a part of um, getting that message out there. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Awesome. So what are what are you working on? And B, please tell me it's the Mothman project you mentioned in an interview.
So I am working on first more picture books.
Okay.
I love writing picture books. All of my picture books are in verse. This Charlie
Awesome.
Pride book is in verse.
Oh yeah.
They're all in verse. So this is kind of my
All right.
really kind of my outlet, honestly. It's my really earnest poetry. And I get to tell it in usually fun ways. So I'm writing a lot more musical and artist and history
Oh,
verse
nice.
picture book. I am also working on folk horror. Mothman certainly makes
Okay.
an appearance,
Okay.
and it is horrifying.
Awesome. Awesome.
It's
Okay. Because
horrifying.
you mentioned that in an interview as well. Because, like it's weird when you're going to interview somebody, it's a little bit like, oh, I'm going to stalk them, right?
It's research. It's research.
That's it.
It's research. Okay,
That's
we
it.
can just change the thought process. It's not stalking. It's
No.
researching.
Well, it's also, I mean, one wants to come up with good questions, right? What
Exactly.
and yeah.
I mean, these are incredible questions.
Oh,
I
good.
love Mothman. I've long loved Mothman. I've long found Mothman um terrifying. Flying insects really creep me
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Humanoids really creep me out. And I think I've found the way to combine all of that with a conversation about art
Ooh.
and the
Okay.
importance of art
Okay. Okay. Oh, that
through
sounds
art
okay.
by humans.
Awesome. Awesome.
So that's what I will say.
All right. Fabulous. Okay. Well, would you please tell? I will stick a link to your website and such in the description of the video. But is there any place you want to tell people to find you nowadays? Or
My website is definitely the best spot is beatriceiker.com. Other than that, I'm most active on Instagram, which is
okay,
at Beatrice Winifred Iker,
okay.
and also with threads. And those are also Blue Sky, same thing, Beatrice
Awesome.
Iker. Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has
Thank
been
you
a
for having me. I really
delight.
appreciate it.
We're gonna have to meet at a convention because I
We have to, and
we
we have to
will.
talk perfume.
Yes, we will. We will.
Yes.
We definitely will. Okay. Thank you. I
Thank
love you.
you.